In math today, we are going to continue learning about data and graphs. We're going to begin today by listening to our success criteria and how we can use frequency tables to create a scaled graph.
Today, our main focus is continuing to be able to use frequency tables to represent data and create scaled bar graphs and scaled picture graphs. We'll also be creating a line plot from data today. Today, the important part is that you will be using graphs and being able to correctly put on a title, the data, a scale, and the categories on your graphs. We will also be reviewing, answering how many more and how many less one-step and two-step problems.
Okay, so today we're going to focus on where do you put the title, where do you put the categories before you start showing the data. You guys have done a great job showing the data yesterday and the day before. Please join me on Seesaw. Click Activities, Assign to Class folder, Blue Math, and our task is called I Can Make Scaled Graphs. When you find it, you may click Add Response to open up our work for today. We just listened to our success criteria on slide number 1. Now it is time for us to go to slide number 3, and together we're going to label a graph with our categories, our title, our data, because that is an important part of understanding a graph. Please click on slide number 3. And I'm going to click play on the directions to hear what we're supposed to do.
Watch the video, then use the text boxes and arrows to label the parts of a graph.
Okay, I'm going to push play on the video. Then we're going to label the title in this graph, the data in this graph, the scale in this graph, and the categories. As we watch this video, I want you thinking about where is the title, where is the data, where is the category, and where is the scale?
Excuse me, Lysandra?
Yeah?
What are your favorite pizza toppings?
What are my options?
I asked the other students in my grade what their favorite pizza toppings are, okay? I got the data in this table right here. If only there was a visual way to make it more clear.
But there is.
Who are you?
I'm Bar Graph Girl,
Whoa.
the only bar graphing superhero in the whole world. Wanna compare the data easily?
Sure.
Put it in a bar graph, it won't hurt. You'll need a horizontal line down below. That's the x-axis, exactly so. We need a vertical line on the left side. That's the y-axis, you should give it a try. Give the x-axis a label.
Pizza toppings?
Yeah, along the bottom, you gotta copy
What?
the topping types, which are categories or types of data.
Extra cheese, pepperoni, mushrooms, my head hurts.
You'll be done soon. Next, label the y-axis, number of students. Now, add a scale to the axis.
Like a fish?
No, how much will count by the increments.
I could count by ones, but my graph will be huge.
Yeah, so it may be better to count by twos.
Cool.
Each line stands for 2 student votes.
Bar graph girl, you're the best.
Oh, you didn't know? Bar graphs are a visual way to show data. Parts of a bar graph, categories, the scale, title, bars, and the labels.
Okay.
Okay, bruh, yeah. Bar graphs are a visual way to show data.
Like it.
Parts of a bar graph, categories, the scale, title, bars, and the label.
So many bars.
Okay, bruh?
What's our bar graph missing?
It's missing bars.
Oh, yeah.
That's like the Indy 500 missing cars. Our bars will show how many kids voted for each category that we listed below. Do you see?
6 students voted for extra cheese.
First go to that category, then we slide up on the scale to 6.
Slide up.
Draw the bar and shade it in real quick.
This looks slick.
Yeah, but don't quit on me. 18 students voted for pepperoni.
I draw the bar to the 18.
Oh, you're getting it. And each bar you draw should have the same width.
Like
now 15
this.
students voted for mushrooms.
There's no 15 on my scale. We are so doomed.
Chill, we just stop halfway between the 14 mark and the 16.
Oh, should my graph have the title?
Yes, indeed, it should tell us about what info we're gonna see.
Fave pizza toppings in my class.
Nice title. Now look at this sweet bar graph. We can analyze the data easily. I
How?
see the most popular topping is pepperoni.
Because that bar is the tallest?
Yes, indeed. Now how many more like that than like extra cheese? Now you know. Bar graphs are a visual way to show data.
Yeah.
Parts of a bar graph, categories to scale, title, bars, and the label.
Okay, bruh.
Okay, bruh, yeah. Bar graphs are a visual way to show data. Parts of a bar graph, categories to scale, title, bars, and the labels. Okay, bruh?
Bar graphs,
Don't sleep on.
bar graphs,
Get the data into.
bar graphs,
Turn your table into.
bar graphs,
Pie charts are overrated.
bar graphs, bar graphs, bar graphs, bar graphs.
All right, we have just heard an example, and this video did a great job highlighting where the title is, where the data is, where the categories are, and where the scale are. So let's start with title. Notice on Seesaw, you can drag the word title, and we're going to move it over to the example. The title is at the top. I'm going to put the word title right by fave pizza toppings in my class. And I'm going to drag an arrow over like this to show that this is the title. The title is normally at the top of a graph, and it tells you what type of information is in the graph. You should be doing the same job right now. You should be dragging the word title and dragging one of the arrows to point to the title. Do that now on your Seesaw slide 3. When you make a scaled graph, you need to put a title. So it is important that you know where it goes on a graph. Next, we can do data. Data is the information inside the graph. So I'm going to drag the word data to the middle of the graph. Then I'm going to drag an arrow and I'm going to point at one of the bars. Data is the information inside the graph. Do that now. Next, we are going to label our categories. You should be matching what I'm doing on Zoom. You should be matching it to what I'm doing on Zoom. You should be doing it on Seesaw. We have now labeled the title. And now we have labeled the data. The data is the information that is shown in the graph. Third, we're going to label the categories. I notice in this example, since it's talking about favorite pizza toppings, my categories are at the bottom. My categories are telling me what type of pizza toppings. So I'm going to drag the word categories to my example. And I'm going to take another arrow. I'm going to point to the categories that are at the bottom. Our categories in this example are extra cheese, pepperoni, and mushrooms. Those are the categories in this example. When you make a graph, you need to know where the title goes, where the data goes, and where the categories go. Our last job is to label the scale. You're working quietly. Our scale is what we're counting by. Our scale helps us read the data. Our last job is to drag our scale to the graph and point to the scale. I notice this graph says we're counting by twos. 2, 4, 6, 8. That is our scale. We are counting by twos. When you make a graph, you need to know what your scale is, and you need to write your scale on the graph. Make sure that you have labeled your parts of a graph, just like I have on Zoom. He's copying you. You have to stop copying. You can come over here if you want to. If you want to. Okay, let's go to slide number 4. In this slide, we will watch a video. Ms. Sharp is going to model how you can make a graph. She's going to show how to put the title, how to put the categories, how to come up with a scale. And then once you have all of that, you can complete the graph by showing the data. I'm going to push play on the video. I want you watching extra carefully. Your job today is to make a graph just like Ms. Sharp. Watch her example to see how to do it. Your eyes, ears, and brain are focused now on the video.
Today, we are going to be creating our scaled graphs, focusing on the different parts of a graph and making sure we know where they go. The first thing I'm going to do is place the title, scale, and categories where they need to be on the graph. Here are my categories on the tally chart, and I'm going to make sure that I put these 4 in the same order. Now that they are in the same order as over here, I've got 2 left. This box says food items sold on the weekend, and this one says scale blank food items. I know that my scale comes down to the bottom, and so this must be my title. It also matches the tally chart, so it goes to the top. The next thing I need to do before I can create my scale and put my scale on the side here is I need to find out what these numbers are. So I'm going to count up the tally marks. I've got 16, 24, 12, and 8. 24 is my largest number. I know that if I started at 0 and went by ones, I would not make it to 24 before my graph was over. Counting by twos might be hard, but I could try. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. That's not going to work. But one thing I know about these 4 numbers that I notice is that they are all multiples of 4. If I do my 4 chant, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. I hit all 4 of them. So I'm going to try a scale of 4. So I'm going to count by 4s along here to go up for each of these. Remember, this line where I put the number marks the line here and what number it stops at. So I always start at 0 for the bottom because that's the base down here. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40.
All right, we're going to pause right there. I see some third graders who are not looking at the Zoom screen. If you're not looking at Ms. Sharp's example, what are you looking at? That's the instruction right now. And if your headphones aren't on, I don't think you can hear from my screen well enough right now because her video is kind of low. She's teaching you what to do. So friends at home are focused, friends in person are focused. Ms. Sharp is showing you what to do. You are looking at her example and listening to her example. This is your instruction. Later, when you say, I need help, I'm going to say, go watch the video. So looking with your eyes, listening with your ears.
I don't need to go up to 40, but I might as well fill it in while I'm here. The next step would to be taking these numbers and creating the bars. So I'm going to use my highlighter, and I see that I have 16 hamburgers. So I'm going to start at 0 and go up to 16 and color that in. I stop here at this line because this is where my 16 is. I'm going to continue on with the pizza, fried chicken, and hot dog. Now that I have graphed all of my data on my chart, I have completed my bar graph. Now I'm ready to go to the next slide and answer some how many more and how many less questions.
Join me on slide number 5, please. On slide number 5, we have some questions about the graph on slide number 4. Number 1 on the left, how many more pizzas were sold than hot dogs? So we have some comparison language here. Pizza compared to hot dogs. I want you to go back to slide number 4 and find the information. I'm looking for a third grader who can share out how many pizzas were sold using the data from slide number 4. Gloria? Our graph, our frequency table says 24 pizzas were sold. 24 pizzas were sold. Now we need to find hot dogs on the graph. Go look at the graph on slide 4. Looking for a different third grader who can identify how much hot dogs, how many hot dogs were sold. Thank you, 8. Great focus, I appreciate that. I notice these are comparing words. Pizza, than hot dogs. That means we can use subtraction to determine the difference. 24, subtract 8. I want you to finish it and find the answer. Do that now, please. Okay, let's go to our second question on slide number 5. How many less fried chicken and hot dogs were sold than pizzas? I notice my question words say how many less. Those are comparing words. And than is a comparing word. That means we're comparing the amounts and we need to use subtraction. So what are our categories? Fried chicken and hot dogs. I'm going to set up myself here. So fried chicken plus hot dogs. Then we're going to subtract. Our other category is pizza. Fried chicken and hot dogs are together, so we add them. Then we compare it to pizza. Do that right now. Go look at your data on slide number 4. Find fried chicken and hot dogs, add them together. Then compare it to pizza. You have 2 minutes to do that and find your answer. Be ready to find the answer. Ready, go. All right, we're ready to go on to slide number 6. No. Move on to slide number 6, please. On slide number 6, we will work together to make sure we have a title, a scale, and categories on our graph. So I notice our data over here in our frequency table. I notice the title says schools in each town. So I'm going to click that title that says the same thing. I'm going to move it to where the title goes on my graph. Remember, the title normally goes up top. If my frequency table says schools in each town, my graph needs to say schools in each town. Check that you have put your title in the correct spot. You are on slide number 6, ready to create the graph. Next, look at our frequency table. I notice some categories. They're calling them towns. A town is a community. Even if you don't know how to read these categories, you can match them on the graph. I notice that Ms. Sharp has put the words here for us, so let's click and drag to move them into the correct spot. Mayfield goes first on my frequency table, so I'm going to put Mayfield first on my picture graph, just like that. Whatever my frequency table shows, my graph is going to show. They should match. Next on my frequency table is the one that starts with R. It says Richmond. I'm going to find Richmond. I found it, and I'm going to move it into my graph, and it's under Mayfield because the same thing is shown on my frequency table. I match it on my graph. Keep going. Next says Greenwood. If my category says Greenwood, I need to write a category that says Greenwood. I'm going to drag it and put it on my graph. Our last one says Salem. I see Salem. I'm going to match it to my frequency table. Make sure yours go in the same order as the frequency table. That way you don't get confused when you're representing the data. Mayfield, Mayfield. Richmond, Richmond. Greenwood, Greenwood. Salem, Salem. I checked mine. Did you check yours? We have placed a title. We have placed our categories correctly. What should we do next before we show the data? That's right, we need a scale. Before you show the data, you have to decide, what am I counting by? Notice that Ms. Sharp has set up a scale at the bottom. Our data is all about schools in the town, so our picture symbol is a school. That worked out nicely. Now we need to determine what we're counting by. In order to pick a scale that makes sense, you have to look at your data. Circle your data on your frequency chart. Look at those numbers. I notice the greatest data is 10. That helps me, especially when I'm making a bar graph. This isn't a bar graph, but it still helps me to know the biggest number. And now I'm thinking about what I can count by. I notice that 2, 4, and 10 are all even numbers. When we have even numbers, we can count by 2 pretty easily. I also notice that we have a 1, which means we need to show a half. Ms. Sharp has already set up, you have a half of a school and a whole school. I think a scale that makes sense is counting by 2s, and then our half picture can be 1. I'm going to get my scale recorded. You should do the same on your Seesaw page. A whole school is equal to 2 schools. Remember, when we're moving our pictures over, you need to duplicate them. You can push the ... and unlock it. Then you can push duplicate. Or if you know how to do Control-C and Control-V, you can do that. There's 2 strategies for you to copy. It's time for us to show our data. Look at Mayfield. Mayfield has 1 school in the town. If we're counting by 2s, I know we need a half to equal 1. Half of 2 is 1. Now it's time for Richmond. Richmond has 10 schools in the town. So I know that I can start by counting by 2s. And I can skip count by 2 up to 10 as I move them. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Notice how I'm trying to space them out equally. When you squish them together or they're moving like this, that is confusing for other people to read. That is hard to read. And I know you guys are giggling because you can relate. It's hard to read our work when it's messy. Try to do it neatly in your row and line them up with the same space between each. Greenwood has 4 schools in the town. I can count by 2s to get to 4. I can skip count 2, 4. Notice how I'm even lining up and I'm making columns this way. on my picture graph. That way it's easier to read. When you make it neat with rows and columns, it's easier for others to read your graph. Yesterday, we talked about how we don't want to confuse others. If your graph is hard to read, they don't understand the data. Last one, finish it up with me. Salem has 2 schools in the town. I can put one hole to show 2 schools. Great work. Our job is going to be answering questions on slide 7 about this data. Use the data on slide 6 to answer the questions on slide 7. You have 1 minute to answer the questions on slide 7. Go ahead and do that and show your work on slide 7. Please wrap up your work on slide 7. Great focus today during math. Let's talk about your independent task. All students are listening so they know what to work on independently today. On slide 10, it says independent work. You need to complete all of the slides after slide 10. Let's take a peek at what those are. On slide 11, you're going to create a bar graph. Ms. Sharp has given you a title, a scale, and categories. You need to drag them into the correct places, just like we practiced. Dragging them into the correct places, putting your categories in order and your title at the top. Then you will create your scale using the data. Then you will complete the bar graph to show the data. Slide 12, you have questions to answer about that data. Go to slide 13. On slide 13, you're going to do the same skills, but this time it's a picture graph. You're going to drag your title and your categories into the correct order. Then you will come up with a scale using your data. Write your scale in the blank. Then you will show your picture graph using the picture to represent the data. You will continue answering questions about the data on slide 14. Are you noticing a pattern here? Number 15, you're going to create the graph. Show your title, show your categories, and come up with a scale. Show the data on the graph, and then answer questions about the data. That's what you're working on today. On slide 17, you will reflect on your success. Tell me how you're doing with creating a scaled graph. I see a couple hands are raised. Ashley, go ahead.
The that we were doing on reading, I didn't complete it because when I was going to start it, it asked me questions and I didn't know what to do.
Okay, let's focus on math only. Start on slide 10 and do all of the slides after 10. Thank you, Ashley, for sharing that. Kaylee, go ahead, Kaylee. Well, your hand is raised on here, so that's confusing to me. Okay, I will be on at 12:45 for anyone who has questions. You know your independent tasks, starting on slide 10, doing all of the slides after. I will be checking Seesaw work and sending back anyone that needs to look at it again. Great job during math today.
Bye, Ashley.